You can go wherever you want and do whatever you want. I must have spent 1,000 hours in this game. King's Bounty is a genre of its own. King's Bounty series has gone through 3 major stages. The first was its inception back in 1990, when Jon Van Caneghem made the first game. It became a milestone in the video game industry and paved the way for the Heroes of Might and Magic series. Then in 2008, Entertainment and Katauri Interactive brought the franchise back with King's Bounty, The Legend, which was very well received both in Russia and across the globe. I think we were incredibly lucky to get a hold of such a reputable brand. It all began back when I'd been talking with Dmitry Gusarov, creator of another popular series, Space Rangers, about his next project. He showed me his drafts for a strategy game with turn-based combat, and at some point mentioned that he would love to create the next King's Bounty. I told him I'll think about it, and it all came together. In 2008, Entertainment and Katauri brought King's Bounty back. It was sort of a remake of the original King's Bounty from 1990, but scaled up to the modern standards. Now we're working on King's Bounty 2, which takes all the best features from previous games and takes the series to the next level.
King's Bounty
is a unique franchise developed by different people and in different technological eras. But even though it keeps evolving, it stays true to its roots and keeps the spirit of the genre that was established back in 1990 by Van Caneghem. What do all games in this franchise have in common? First off, turn-based tactics, which is probably the most interesting part, but it's also an RPG. With a hero who explores the world, completes quests, masters new skills and spells, and so on. So it's a fusion of RPG and strategy. Only a few games have combat systems like that. King's Bounty, Heroes of Might and Magic, Early Age of Wonders. Also, Master of Magic had similar battles, but not quite the same. Turn-based combat, where you have an army, your enemy has an army, and the battle is fought between those two armies. All games in the series feature army-on-army turn-based combat, which has evolved significantly along the way. Back in Van Caneghem's game, it was quite simple, almost like chess, but with variable strength of the pieces. In King's Bounty 2008, these pieces gained many active and passive abilities, which allowed for a much wider variety of tactics. The battlefield has also evolved, from the square-based field in Van Caneghem's game to a hex grid in Katauri's game. Katauri's battlefield also reflected the environment where the battle took place. Now we're taking it even further. Our arenas are a one-for-one replica of the encounter area on the world map. Engine-wise, they actually take place on that exact territory. So if you start a fight with someone on a city street, the battle will happen on that very same street. The second pillar of King's Bounty gameplay is its main character, an adventurer who completes all kinds of quests, explores the world, finds treasures, and in the end, solves some global problem that serves as the focus of the story. The original King's Bounty featured simple exploration and story. King Maximus is dying, and you have to find a scepter, as I recall. To find it, you need a map. So you go from island to island looking for pieces of that map. Back then, the main character was just an adventurer who didn't even have a proper name. He was basically a troop carrier. The following King's Bounty, the one made by Katauri in 2008, had a distinct plot. At first, following the adventures of Bill Gilbert or one of his 2 alter egos. Then the story of Princess Amélie. It featured many well-written quests that let the players get a good feel for the world, its inhabitants, and their own character. In King's Bounty 2, we're sticking to this tradition. We have a great storyline, and the player always has a clear goal. The system of ideals is an integral part of the narrative, because at certain points, some of the branches will open up and others will close, depending on what your ideals are and what choices you've made in the past. We hope that gamers will play King's Bounty 2 multiple times using different protagonists, or maybe the same protagonist with a different set of ideals. The first game had a hard time limit, so you could lose the game by running late. Correct, the difficulty setting determined how many turns you had to explore the world. But it turns out that if you could find a town that sells time-stop scrolls, you could work around this limit. I think it was the first time I actually analyzed the internal workings of the game and benefited from it. In King's Bounty 2, we decided not to introduce a time limit because we want players to explore our world without racing against the clock. We want them to experience our story at their own pace. We try to give most of our NPC their own little stories and tasks for the protagonist, but it's up to the players to decide if they want to get involved or not. In any case, we want to tell a story that's captivating and intriguing, that will really immerse the player in the dramatic events of our world. King's Bounty is probably in the top 10 most prominent games created in the post-Soviet states, and of course, we're proud of it. With each game, the series has become better and more elaborate, but the foundations, they stay the same. King's Bounty 2 is a true successor that respects this heritage while pushing the series forward. It really takes the next step in the RPG tactics genre. Even though King's Bounty 2 looks very different from previous titles in the series, and the story takes place in an entirely new world, this very much represents the genre that is King's Bounty. We are sure that King's Bounty 2 is the best project for us. Each time 1Z Entertainment announces a new game, one of the first comments we get is, "When are you going to announce King's Bounty 2? Well, it finally happened.